It's a trap.
Swami
With all this prasada, maybe I'll also become a devotee. Uddhava said that. Said by wearing the clothes you wore, eating the food you ate, we will conquer the illusory energy. It was a blissful statement. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Giri Baradari Jaya Giri Baradari. Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. It's a nice harmonium. No. Do you mind removing it? Okay, do we need translation here? I know Matajita. Oh, you're going to translate, okay. No, this is fine. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I haven't memorized it yet. Feel free to interrupt me if I speak too fast or you couldn't catch something. No problem. It's a small, intimate crowd. Madhura. Just give me a sec. peel a couple of layers. It's a huge difference between here and outside. So you, the rest of you do good with English, I guess. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, this lovely evening, we're reading from Srimad-Bhagavad Gita. We're in the 5th chapter with Srila Prabhupada entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, and we're in text 22. Okay. Yehi samsparsha jabhoga. Dukkhayo naya evate. Adyantavanta kaunteya. Nate shuramate buddha. Yehi samsparsha jabhoga. Dukkhayo naya evate. Adyantavanta kaunteya. Nate shuramate buddha. Would anyone like to chant? Yehi samsparsha jabhoga. Dukkhayo naya evate. Adyantavanta kaunteya. Nate shuramate buddha. Yehi samsparsha jabhoga. Yehi samsparsha jabhoga. Dukkhayo naya evate. Dukkhayo naya evate. Adyantavanta kaunteya. Adyantavanta kaunteya. Nate shuramate buddha. It's like when you chant Om, you know, there's A-U-M, and that M, when you chant, it goes up. So this also, at the end, goes up towards Krishna. Okay, anyone else would like to try? We won't be mad if you go down. Ladies, some ladies maybe? No? Hare Krishna. Oh, is Jarasachi also here? Oh, he's in India, okay. Send him my regards, even though I guess I could also electronically, but... Yeah. Would you like to chant the verse? Yehi samsparsha jabhoga. Dukkhayo naya evate. Adyantavanta kaunteya. Buddhamate Buddha. Okay, let's go into words for word translation. Ye, those. He, certainly. Samsparshajaha, by contact with the material senses. Bhoga, enjoyment. Dukkha, sorry. Dukkha. Not a whole lot of light and kind of small letters. Distress. Yonaya, sources of. Eva, certainly. Te, they are. Adi, beginning. Anta, end. Vantaha, subject to. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Na, never. Teshu, in those. Ramate, takes delight. Buddha, the intelligent person. Oh, you know what? You don't. So during this presentation, I'll be referring lots to the Sanskrit. So if you have a, like a mobile phone or something that you can follow, it'd be a lot easier. Or maybe a printed book if you're an old-fashioned fella. Sure, let there be light. Translation. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Purport. As it was written by Srila Prabhupada, material sense pleasures are due to the contact of the material senses, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? In the Padma Purana it is said, Ramante yogino nante satyanande chidatmani iti rama padena sau param brahma vidiyate. That is, the mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasure from the Absolute Truth, and therefore the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. In the Srimad-Bhagavatam, also 551, it is said, Nayam deho deha bhajan riloke kashtan kama narhate vidbhujam ye tapodevyam putra kayena sattvam shutyed yasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam. That is, my dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in the human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, in other words, hogs. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified, and as a result you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. End quote. Therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Muchas gracias. Homa Yajna timirandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. So, I always say this, very interesting, but every time I open this book, I have the same sensation. This fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, of course, like all chapters, has something unique to it. And in this chapter, we find Krishna refining Arjuna's understanding. Arjuna was, of course, I assume you remember, he was quite off. How do you say in German when someone is off? No, off means like you're not right. You're not on the right track. You went astray. Something like that. Yeah. That sounds about right. So Arjuna was, we could say, derailed. And he asked a question, interestingly enough, I remember on my 200th reading of the Bhagavad Gita, I noticed that Arjuna is asking the same question yet again. And it seems to be a question that tends to repeat in our own minds. I mean, I recognize that question to be the same question on my 200th reading of the Bhagavad Gita. And of course, seem to have repeated the same ignorance in my own life many times. And it is really a fine point. And I hope to be able to demonstrate that point to you tonight, because obviously when we don't get this point right, even though it seems to be just a tiny departure, at the end it's actually a huge departure from our own well-being and from Krishna consciousness in general. So that's my task for tonight. Does anyone remember directly what the verse is saying? Okay, so we have in the beginning. Okay, let's go through the Sanskritam. Samsparsha. Sparsha means touch, like a physical touch. When something comes in contact with another thing, you call that sparsha. And samsparsha means a very good contact. Sam is like in Sanskritam or sankirtanam, which means together, complete, like that. Samsparsha. Ja means like Janmashtami. Janma means birth. Yeah. So Ja means speaks to us about origination. That something is originating, coming out of something. And so from sparsha, from the physical touch, comes enjoyment. Bhoga means enjoyment. So from the physical touch come enjoyment. Comes also suffering. Depends. But here, you're right. But here we have a claim which we all know perfectly well every time, prasadam time comes. We know when the senses come in contact with the sense objects that it can produce pain or pleasure. And if it's a pleasant contact, we call that pleasure. So the bhoga or the enjoyment is the subject matter of the first line. The enjoyment. Enjoying what? The touch. And what is this touch? This is the touch of different senses to different sense objects. Like we have a literally tactile sense. How do you say tactile? Okay, taste sounds very similar to me. So we're literally, we have experience of touch, and the sense for this is the skin. The skin loves to come in contact with something which is pleasant, soft. I had a friend who was a serious sense enjoyer. Committed sense enjoyer. Pure devotee of sense enjoyment. We were teenagers. We had no money, but somehow or other he managed to procure some money, and then he bought silk sheets, silk bed sheets. I don't know if you ever slept in silk bed sheets. It's super soft, like you just. So that's the sensation of touch, and so other senses too. Eyes like to come in contact with pleasant sights. Of course, the eyes can come in contact with unpleasant sights. Then we have experience of displeasure. But if they come in contact with something which we call beautiful, or experience as beautiful, even though it's a very good question whether anything is objectively beautiful or it just seems to us to be beautiful. Like, who's the judge of the ultimate beauty? Is there an absolute beauty? Well, we would say Krishna. Eyes need to see something beautiful. So that's the contact of the eyes with, again, a sense object. So we have a sense and a sense object. And like that, we can go through all of the senses. The tongue likes to come in contact with something palatable. The mind likes to think about pleasant thoughts. So what it is, it's senses coming in contact with sense objects. So that's sparsha. Even though sparsha literally means touch or contact, sparsha practically, the way we use Sanskritam, almost always indicates sensual contact. We'll see throughout Bhagavad Gita that there are other types of contacts. Like yoga also means contact, but not this kind of contact. Yoga also means to join, to come to touch. As a matter of fact, throughout Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses the term it's used in the verse next. Hang on, I think I have it written. Yukta Atma. Atma means the self, and Yukta means connected. Like Yukta Atma, the connected self, is like the best type of a person. And sort of the goal of Bhagavad Gita is to become a Yukta Atma. But here we have different type of contact. This is a physical contact of senses with sense objects. And that produces bhoga or pleasure. That's the subject matter of the first line. The second line, we have very interesting dukkha. I think we all know this. Suffering, pain, displeasure. Yeah. Yona. Yoni means a womb. And so it means born from. Yeah. Born from. So dukkha yona ya evas. Eva means certainly. And so what this verse is saying that, okay, from this sparsha, we have sometimes displeasure, but in this case we have pleasure. But even when the pleasure is the result of the contact of the senses with the sense objects, that touch is the birthplace of misery. Very graphic language here. That he goes on, perhaps the explanation as to why is it the birthplace of misery. And it says Adi Anta. Does anyone know this Adi Anta? Beginning and end. Beginning and end. Adi means beginning, Anta means end. Adi Anta. Vanta it has the quality of it. So why is it the birthplace of misery? Because it has a beginning and it has an end. O Kaunteya, Arjuna. And then the last verse is sort of like cherry on the cake. Do you have that saying in German? Yeah, same or same? Okay. It says na. Na means not. Teshu means them. Who are them? Buddha. Buddhi means intelligence. Buddha means a person who's intelligent. Now we're all intelligent, but sometimes our intelligence might be asleep or be used for dumb stuff, in which case it's questionable how intelligent that intelligence is. So Buddha is a person whose intelligence is awake. And so the person whose intelligence is awake, na, does not. Ramate, Rama means joy, pleasure. Yeah. So those doesn't say those were self-realized. Just those says those were intelligent. They don't seek for pleasure in this place where the senses meet the sense objects. So that's what the verse says. Oops, where am I? In my notes. So I'll just say a couple more sentences in regards to how does the sparsha or sensual enjoyment lead to suffering. Here we have the term Adi Anta, has a beginning and an end. What do you think? How does the fact that this kind of pleasure has a beginning and an end lead to pain or misery? Okay, that's very good. Produces attachment. But why does the fact that it has a beginning and an end create attachment? Because it ends. Okay. Yes. You want it again? Okay, very well. Okay, very well. What were you going to say, Munindraj?
I was thinking you asking why it causes pain.
Yeah. Why the fact that it has a beginning and an end? Why does it cause pain that it has a beginning and an end?
Because of fear that you can't repeat it again.
Aha! That's a good one. You develop fear that will I be able to repeat the cycle? Attachment, that's also good, but why attachment? Oh, who said it? No, you said it, man. Yes.
Because it's limited.
Because it is limited. Very well. Very well. Temporary. Well, Adi Anta means temporary. It has a beginning and an end. That's what temporary means. It's not endless.
Why is it painful?
Yeah, why is it painful if it's temporary? That's a good question. That's the question. Yes.
Because we don't know
Oh.
if we can repeat it again. What we
Yes. Yes. We heard that. You repeated the same thing. But yeah, that's a good one. Very true. Very true. Yes. You're never satisfied. That's also very good.
Because we forget the eternal.
We forget the eternal. That's also true. Prabhupada says that in the Purport. Prabhupada, yeah. Very, very true. Yeah, yes.
Because of that anxiety?
Aha! anxiety, that is also true. Why anxiety? Yes.
Anxious to have this experience.
You're anxious to have that
Or afraid, anxious that you might not have.
correct. You may not have it. We're getting close, guys and girls. In American colloquial, when you say guys, you mean guys and girls. Just yeah, we're pleasure-seeking entities, and here we have a pleasure that has a beginning and an end.
And it shows that we cannot control it.
Very well. Very well. For God's sake, you can't control it. I mean, you try to. You know, that's the difference. It's not an internal pleasure that's always available. But you have to keep making arrangements to have a control over it, to have access to it. And that induces fear, induces anxiety, and bizarrely enough, produces attachment. For God's sake. Very interesting. And as Prabhu back there said, like we're described as Ananda Mayobhya, like we always seek pleasure. I don't know if you noticed this, but the moment I wake up, I'm thinking, how will I be happy today? What can I do for my happiness today? Like you can't avoid it. We're constantly wanting to be happy, to feel satisfaction. And this damn thing has a beginning and an end. And so when you don't have it, you're thinking, my God, how can I get it? And then when you get it, you're thinking, my God, I hope I don't lose it. But it has an end. You have to lose it. And there's one more thing, at least, that I can think of. Ta-da! It's evening time is the worst time for heavy thinking. It's bound by time, that's true. Also by space and all kinds of certain external circumstances that we don't have control over. Yeah. Yes. And I don't know if you noticed, but all these pleasures that have a beginning and an end have a tendency to have a satiation point. How do you say that in German? Satiation point. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a sponge. You know, you put some water in it and then put more and more and more, and then it can't not take anymore. So this samsparsha has this tendency, like more pleasure you pour in, like chocolate. I don't know, I always like the taste of chocolate. Even the dark chocolate, the one that no one likes. But after 25 kilograms of chocolate, man, you're done with chocolate for 2 days. But there comes a satiation point. I mean, I remember as a teenage boy, I had a girlfriend, and she was super beautiful. Yeah, I used to look at her and think, my God, she's so beautiful. But then I looked at her, like, I couldn't see the beauty anymore. Like, you become obtuse to it, You know what obtuse means? Dull. Like you cannot penetrate, enter that beauty. You don't experience it anymore. And then you go, Prabhupada speaks about this, you go on an artificial renunciation. Like you go away from your girlfriend, I don't want to. And then when the senses refresh, then you go back. Bhoga Tyaga, that's the process. And in the long run, it's quite frustrating. Yeah, these are some really good points. But I would say for me, one that speaks the loudest is that this pleasure is external. And because it is external, you don't have control over it. And we could say that, we could perhaps describe the history of the stupid world exactly in these terms. People seek this pleasure, and because it's not within them, they have to somehow or other control it. And then people become control freaks. Why do people want money? Because it gives you the power to control. You can afford control over things. And very often even control over beings. And in this world, I don't know if you notice this, but when one person has that which another person wants, this first person becomes the controller of the other person. Physical beauty. Why do people want physical beauty? For a variety of reasons. I don't want to boil it down to just one, but one of the very important reasons is control. You become more powerful. I'll give an extreme example. I hope it's not inappropriate. Please forgive me. I'm a conditioned soul that can sometimes say stupid things, but I grew up with a sister. I had a sister. We were just 1 year apart. And we were like we weren't a boy or a girl. We were, you know how kids are? Like, you were genderless. And then girls enter puberty before boys. And she started to grow breasts. And my sister came to me and told me, something weird is happening to me. She was totally depressed. I was like, what the hell's going on? But later on, when she noticed that men are looking, samsparsha, then her opinion changed. Like, okay, this is a source of power. The reason why people dress a certain way, flaunt this, that, and the other thing is because if you have what others want, you're in a position of power. You can sell that thing, you can trade that thing, you can... like that. And a materialistic contact between two people is most often a trade, business exchange. And the funniest thing is when people call that love. And then when they find somewhere else a better exchange rate, you know what exchange rate is? Like when you go to change currency, money, When you get a better exchange rate, then all of a sudden the love has jumped the boat. Okay, just a quick note in terms of modern relevance. Do you know what a dopamine cycle is? Dopamine, the chemical that creates what? Oh, luck. Yeah. Creates a sense of joy and happiness and enjoyment. Yes, that's very true. Yeah. And so, oh man, this is a huge subject, man. I'll just refer to it. The dopamine cycle is a cycle of anticipation, where you're waiting for it. Oh, I'm going to get 5 kilograms of chocolate. Or whatever it is. The anticipation, the joy of anticipation. And then there's the pleasure. And then there is crash. And then repeat it. Then after crash there is disappointment, then you're waiting for the senses to recuperate to repeat the whole thing. I don't know if you know this, but once I was asked, I was doing some television interview, and they asked me my advice, if I, as a monk, had an advice to give to people in regards to the post-New Year's depression. Do you know this phenomenon? Depression that comes after the New Year's Eve. It's a dopamine crash. Because, leading up to the New Year's, and the Christmas and stuff, and, people are all hyped up. And then there's the New Year's, and there are the presents, and, whatnot. And then there's the crash. Anta, the end. And it's a known phenomenon, depression after the New Year's. And they asked me if I had any advice. Well, don't get excited about the New Year's. It's a trap. Do you know what a bait is? Bait. What's the German word for bait? Like if you have a mouse trap, and then yeah. And you can have it on a hook for fishing, or you could have it on a trap for a mice. It's a bait. Like, the mouse might be thinking, oh, such a lovely piece of cheese. Man, don't go for it. Hey, can we call pleasure? There was a translation. Very good translation. Can we call pleasure that takes you to pain? Is that pleasure? Yes, but no. That's the problem. It is pleasure, but it isn't. And then you get all confused. Is it pleasure or not? And because of the attachment you develop for it, you cannot see the connection between the pleasure and the pain. You don't understand that that's one unit. And that the pleasure at the beginning, it's a bait, man. What's the alternative? Very well, let's go to the alternative. So, I'll say 2 more things and then we'll end there. This verse, it's not hanging in the air by itself. Rather, it has a place in the whole chapter. And this whole chapter has its place in the whole book. So we have to now carefully see what this verse is saying and what this verse is not saying. And if we make a mess here, we make a great mistake, which is sort of what I wanted to communicate mainly this lovely evening. If you look at 5:21, the verse before says, Bahya sparsha asaktatma. Bahya sparsha, external sparsha, external touch, external pleasure. Asakta atma, asakti means detachment. So atma means self. So the person who is detached from the external pleasures, vindati atmani yat sukham, and vindati enjoys atmani inside your own, in yourself, sukham, happiness. So here we have contrast, right? You have the external enjoyment and the internal enjoyment. And it says, Sa Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. Yuktatma, that person is Yukta Atma. That person is connected. That's a connected soul, which is a goal of Bhagavad Gita, to be the connected soul. And what is that person connected to? Brahma Yoga. Brahma means spirit. In other words, that person is connected to the spirit. And spirit is a category which means God, soul, spiritual world, just the metaphysical dimension of things. Sukham akshayam ashnute. Ashnute, that person is eating, consuming eternal happiness. In other words, satisfaction that has no beginning and has no end. That's a verse before this one. So in this verse today, we have exactly the opposite. And then the verse after is also interesting. The verse after says that one who controls Shakti means power. So Shaknoti means one who has the power or ability. Eva, here, not somewhere else, but here. Sometimes translated in this world or in this body, but in this situation. So one who has the power to hear, right here, Yaha, he who, Shodum, endure, tolerate. So one who is able to tolerate here, what? Prak sharira vimokshanat, before he dies. Sharira means body, vimokshana means free from the body, means the death. So one who, before dying in this world, is able to endure, tolerate, what? Kama, krodha, udbhava. That which comes from kama and krodha. Kama and krodha is that cycle of desire and frustration. And udbhava, and all that which comes from it. Kama, krodha, vegam. These vega means what? Urge, pushing. So one who's able to tolerate this, saha, that person, yuktaha, is connected. Krishna uses this word a lot. And sasuki naraha, naraha means a human or a person. Sasuki, that person is a happy person. So, but here, here we have not enough information. It's still not enough information. We have external pleasures and we have internal pleasures contrasted to each other. So when we hear this, we end up like Arjuna, thinking no external activity, no external pleasure, no pleasure from the contact of the senses with the sense objects. But really this verse is not saying that. As a matter of fact, Arjuna is thinking, he's thinking, I'll just like go and meditate. But Krishna is telling him, no, man, that's wrong. Like, the point of this verse is not to cancel a life. This verse is not telling you not to enjoy. This verse is not telling you not to look at the sunset or the sunrise because it's pleasant. But this verse has so does anyone remember the beginning, Arjuna's question, perhaps at the beginning? Actually, it's getting late, so I'll just say it. So in the beginning, this chapter begins with Arjuna's question. Why? I'm confused, Krishna. First you tell me to renounce the activities, and then you recommend yoga. And yoga means activities. Because yoga is a positive trend, and sannyas is the negative trend. Nyasa means to give up. Sannyasa, completely give up. And yoga is exactly the opposite. Yoga means to accept. So Arjuna is confused. So what are you telling me, to reject or to accept? Like, what am I supposed to do now? To be active or not to act? Like, I'm confused. And very often devotees also don't understand this. Most often demonstrated when someone asks, how can I be a devotee and married or have a job? Like, dude, you missed the point. I mean, you could be so-called renunciate and be stupid and not be connected. So throughout this chapter, Krishna is addressing this question of Arjuna's. And so the point here is that even though you experience pleasure from the contact of the senses with the sense objects, but unless you have a goal in life through which you're going to experience this world, you're always going to get lost in this sparsha. So the point is that life is a mission. A mission that needs to be completed. And then in terms of this mission, we experience this world. And in terms of this mission, we get a job or don't get a job. We go on a morning walk or not. Why did Prabhupada go on a morning walk? In pleasant places which looked really nice. Because the senses require to be in contact with pleasant sense objects. We would all go crazy if our senses were constantly exposed to unpleasant sense objects. You cannot live like that. But to think that the goal of life is to bring senses in contact with sense objects that are pleasant, man, you're wrong. You are so wrong. And according to this verse, you're stupid. And so, in Krishna consciousness, we're not against sense gratification. We're against unnecessary or stupid sense gratification. Even in Ayurveda, your meal, your prasadam, has to be tasty. Otherwise, there's not enough of fire of digestion. The body, senses require pleasant contact with sense objects. But when you make that the mission of your life, dude, you're stupid. I mean, look around. Look at the result. What happens when you make that the goal of your life? Your relationships suck. You're miserable. You create problems for other people. That's how wars come about. Because stupid people want to grab up power so they can control things which is outside of them. But the real pleasure comes from within because of the goal of life. Because you're moving towards the goal of the mission of life. And then even the sparsha, the physical pleasure, if it's on the way there and it pushes you towards that goal, it builds your internal pleasure. Let's not be like Arjuna and be life-denying. The verse is not about denying life. Like, joy is a good thing. Well, depends what kind of joy. That's the point. And so people have a tendency to go from one extreme to the other. But you have to be yukta atma, connected one. Connected with what? With Krishna, with the goal of life. And then whatever decision you make in terms of that goal of life is a good decision. Like when people say, is it better to be, I don't know, brahmachari or a grihastha? It doesn't matter. It all depends, why have you made that choice? Why have you made that choice? If you made that choice to get you closer to Krishna eventually, then that's a good choice. And like that, everything else in life. Om Tat Sat. Questions, comments? We already have one. Yes.
I was wondering about these two words, Rama and Boga. Rama we translated with pleasure, and Boga with enjoyment. What is the exact difference between these two words?
Well, it largely depends on context, as far as I understand the Sanskrit. Even though, like for example, why do we call foods bhoga? Because it's meant for Krishna's enjoyment, like that. So if I had to translate that into English, I would translate bhoga as pleasure and Rama as happiness. And there is a difference between the two. Because you see, pleasure is the experience of something comfortable, but happiness is a joy of the soul. And you can experience happiness even in sense gratification, which is, when the senses are gratified, that's bhoga. That's pleasure. And from that, Rama or happiness can come out. But if it's this materialistic sense pleasure, adi anta, then it has a beginning and an end. What we're talking about is just like materialistic, physical touch like that, which has a bit, not to repeat the whole lecture, like that. So, so as far as I can tell, that's the subtle difference between Rama and Bhoga. Bhoga is pleasure and Rama is happiness.
Okay.
And you notice, like, you can experience Rama even from displeasure. Like fasting. Fasting it hurts. I fast every Ekadashi. I just drink water. And I tell you, it's painful. But somehow or other, I feel happiness. Because I feel like I'm accomplishing something. It's good for health, it's good for japa, it's good for, you have a lot of time. Amazing how much time you have when you fast. I have a sense of success. And so even though I experience displeasure, I experience happiness. Or cold shower. Man, that's painful. But it's awesome.
Or sports.
Sports also, yeah. And so on, like that with Google. I mean, I'm saying this just in an attempt to demonstrate what I think is the difference in Sanskritam of the use of Bhoga and Arama, like that. But the best would be to ask a Sanskrit scholar, like that. Note, I'm speculating. Is that okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we had 3, 4 hands. I wasn't sure. I saw her and the 2 of you. Now, who was first? Do you know amongst yourself? Okay, let's. He's a gentleman. He'll give the lady the mic. Okay.
You mentioned that it doesn't matter if someone is a brahmachari or grihastha, and this reminded me of something I read that Prabhupada said that grihasthas have a 25% of going back to Godhead in this life, and brahmacharis have a 75%. And so, in connection,
when did they say that?
I don't know. I read it somewhere.
I'm
like a quote.
I'm not quite sure he said that. You know, devotees say all kinds of things,
Okay.
and if he said it, it must have been in a specific context.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the context in which could that be true is that if you're able to simplify your life, you'll have an easier life. And so with that easier life, you can more easily dedicate your time to service and study and whatnot.
Yes,
Like that.
because you have less distractions.
Yeah, yeah.
So in that regard, you could say it does kind of matter.
Yeah, but only that sense. But as soon as you extrapolate it into real life, which is complex, out of that shell, then you get a very different picture. Like most men require contact with the woman, and most women require contact with the man. And that's it. And we see when you let people loose, that some or other couple up, you know, men and women, with few exceptions. But mostly, it's like two opposites. They attract each other, give each other what the other one lacks, and so this is divine. This is not. But in this divinity, again, a lot of stupid things can go on, like that. And so, look, I trained hundreds of young men as brahmacharis, not 100, but many hundreds. So I have a lot of experience with guys. When they come, they're super happy, and they do a lot of service, and they're sweet, this, that, the other thing, and then in due course of time they just crash. Why? Because not all of them, but most, like almost all, they require contact with a girl. No matter what you do, like they're just sinking. And you give them a girl and they come to life again. And that's natural. That's nothing to be laughed about. I mean, we can laugh about anything, of course, in a good, with a good, healthy attitude, But this is, God made it like that. And so, like for example, Srila Prabhupada accomplished what his godbrothers didn't. His godbrothers were sannyasis, monks, whatnot, and they didn't accomplish what his 3 married couples accomplished. They went to England, met the Beatles, made Hare Krishna popular all over Europe. So ultimately, it doesn't matter. But only in one capacity is that true. if Prabhupada ever said that. I don't know. I never read it. I can't remember that I ever read that Prabhupada's were. I can't remember where I read Prabhupada's words where he said that, for example.
I think it was a devotee that said that Prabhupada said
Yeah. That's, you know, you know how that goes. Did you ever play the broken telephone game?
Yeah.
Have you played that? Broken telephone game. Like you line up a bunch of people, and then the first person whispers something to you, you know, simple sentence. Then that person whispers the same thing to the other. By the time it comes to the end, it's a totally different sentence. I mean, I played this as a kid, and we would laugh like you can't believe it. How, you know? So this, and also even if someone directly, you know, heard Prabhupada say something, that in itself is also, it's epistemically speaking, it's not an absolute truth. Because you have to know the consciousness of that person, what that person understood, under which circumstances was something said. So, look, anyone who has studied the field of epistemology knows how sensitive matter that is. And so, you know, I don't want to deny things, but also I don't need to rush to accept something like. And so what I'm saying is that that statement cannot be an absolute truth. It just cannot. But I can see how it can be true in a specific set of circumstances. Like Srila Prabhupada warmly recommended everyone to live the life of renunciation. You know, you just simplify things. Life is short, that for sure. You know, I'm 51. I don't know how when did that happen. Honestly, it's a little bit unsettling, you know. So, yeah, you simplify things and it's easier. I mean, ideally we wouldn't eat. Ideally we wouldn't even sleep, like what the hell, you know. But it doesn't work like that. And then we also see that, you know, when you put a man and a woman together, they also have a tendency to hallucinate. But in all honesty, like, way too often and way too much, people who are locked away in monasteries tend to become subhuman and tend to become like these dualists who hate on life because they can't have it. And, you know, instead of being bhaktas, you know, bhakta, someone has bhakti, love. Like, you love your life, you love Krishna, you love other devotees, you love your life. No, you hate everything. Like, you love the deity and hate everything else. That's a very often developed phenomenon in monasteries all over different traditions. So, it's never really so much what you do as much as how you do it and why you do it. Like that.
But isn't what you do, it influences how likely you're to progress? Like if you have
not so much what you do, but as much as why you do it and how you do it. Like for example, doesn't matter whether you distribute books or clean a floor, but what it matters is why you do it, like your own inner motivation, why you do that. Did you read that book? You might have read it, Simple for the Simple. You read that? No. Oh, you read it, yeah. It's a small book written by Mataji. Oh, no. It was written by her husband when she passed away. And she was like nobody and nothing at the temple. Like nobody, of course you can't say that, that's a stupid thing to say, but she wasn't some kind of a big devotee. But the way she passed from this world, after she passed from her husband wrote this book, Simple for the Simple. Like, what a soul. On the other hand, we have people who have been gurus, sannyasis, selling a bunch of books, I don't know, whatever the society rewards. And yet, can sometimes not be pure devotees. Yeah. And especially in the universe of bhakti or Krishna consciousness, bhakti is this sort of a very transcendental thing, which irons out all the differences and makes one thing important, and that's bhakti. I hope I have managed to change your mind. Just joking. Is that okay?
I kind of have this idea in my mind that you have to, the more you renounce, the more likely you're going to attain perfection. And in my head, it kind of makes more sense. For example, a brahmachari that's serving his guru personally, he's more likely to advance than a housewife looking after children. Like in my head, I'm kind of thinking like that.
No. I mean, being close to an advanced devotee is it's certainly an amazing opportunity that we should all try to take advantage of as much as possible. But for example, Prabhupada would never allow anyone to travel with him for more than 1 or 2 months, I forget.
And why?
Yeah, because it's not enough to be close to. Prabhupada said, you could be close to a guru and be a nuisance. Like a fly or a mosquito. But we use the example of a mosquito. You know what does mosquito do? Suck your blood. I mean, these are some of like typically favorable things, but and when we say renunciation, what are we renouncing ourselves from? This, point before the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which tells us that the point of self-realization is to realize that this body and other bodies and this whole world is Krishna's. And renunciation is not a renunciation from this world. It's a renunciation from this attitude that the goal of life is to enjoy this world. No, the goal of life is Krishna. And the relationship with Krishna, which reflects in our relationship with everybody. If you have a good relationship with God, if you truly have a good relationship with God, it will be seen in your relationship with others. In this world. And squirrels, and pigs, and bhaktas, and everything. So, we're not speaking of physical renunciation. When we speak of renunciation, so that's the point of self-realization. And Arjuna also couldn't understand that. Like he asked the same question a bunch of times in the Bhagavad Gita. But the practice of Krishna consciousness has certain elements which we always seek, like to associate with devotees, to go to a holy place, to take Krishna prasadam, to be in the association of advanced devotees, and so on. But once I came to this was like 30 years ago, I came to a temple and I won't say which one. and devotees invited me to a Bhakti Sangha, the hangout of devotees. And we went there, and devotees were baking pizzas and watching a kung fu movie. I was like, this is not a high quality sangha. So, like, what does it mean to hang out with devotees? For God's sake. Is that okay for now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I mean, with time, what we have heard, we think about, and we experience the world, and then things make more or less sense to us. So, no need to quickly agree or disagree with things, Okay, what shall we do? We had two of you. Oh yeah, that's right. I also have to read a huge legal document and then sign it. And I don't want to sign it before I read it, and it's very long.
We have a morning class.
Yeah. Well, we'll take these two questions if you don't mind, and then we'll close the shop for tonight, and then we can.
It's I don't know if it's a question or like a comment. You mentioned that we talked about those consequences which are coming when one is in having this temporary sense enjoyment, which has a beginning and an end. And then we also talked at the end about this healthy kind of healthy sense enjoyment, like a walk on a beach or taking prasad, honoring prasad. And then I'm thinking it's like the activity might be the same, but when one is doing it with the consciousness, with the understanding that this is temporary. This is temporary. Pardon?
Different goal. That's the
different
point.
goal. Then the consequences are not there anymore.
No,
like
consequences are way different. Consequences are way different. You see, when you give some pleasure to the body because body needs it, like you dress warmly because it's cold outside or something, or choose pleasant words to address someone. Why should you speak in harsh words, especially if it's not necessary? That's all for pleasure. But that pleasure, if that pleasure is meant for, it leads you towards the goal, then it has a totally different effect. And the other situation is where the person lives for that bhoga, for that enjoyment. Then you develop all kinds of attachment and frustration and so on. But if you're cultivating the goal of life, then all that comes from your pain or pleasure is the goal of life. Yeah. It's like a rudder, what are you living for? That's existential question. And most devotees don't live for Krishna. But we're practicing Krishna consciousness to come to the point where we actually live for Krishna. Because if you live for Krishna, if that's your answer to the existential question, why do I exist? Not intellectual, but from the bottom of your soul, then you're a pure devotee. And so what we do, we practice Krishna consciousness to influence what we have put in our hearts as the goal of life. And so typically, initially, we put Krishna as the goal of life sort of intellectually, like. But you, the soul, are yet to follow. Like that. Is that okay? Okay. Yes, Prabhuji. Oh, did you have a question? Oh, you have? Okay. Oh, I forgot. Okay, Munindra Gana, and then we're done. Yeah, shoot. Shoot now. Yeah.
The question would be if you could shortly maybe compare or somehow say tell about the difference about spiritual pleasure and material pleasure, but even in the state when we are not so mature in spiritual life, we experience
When we're not so
major like
mature. Okay.
in spiritual life, but still we experiencing some spiritual pleasure, but it's also like for some time. It's also like temporary in some sense. But it's a different kind. If you could,
I think we should do that tomorrow.
that was what I was thinking.
You know, because you see, I don't like to give oversimplified answers, because when you give an oversimplified answer, the person did not really understand the matter. If the person did not understand the matter, means the person has misunderstood the matter. And there's a lot to balance there, you know. Just like with devotees, you very often end up with devotees who hate life, sort of kill life. In that concept of, in order to be a devotee, you have to murder life. You're like, where'd you get that from, man? But even though the devotee doesn't think like that, very often devotees behave like that. It's this kind of a dualistic picture in mind. And it's a very subtle difference. So look at Arjuna. I mean, he heard he asked the same question a few times. Would that be okay?
For sure. I was also thinking it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
It's a little bit difficult point. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for your attention. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki.